agro-processing, and manufacturing. The Maluti Apofung SEZ in the Free State is strategically located at the intersection of the N3 corridor linking Johannesburg and Durban. Recent investment milestones include the operationalization of JC Plastics, a plastic molding facility supplying manufacturers such as DeFi South Africa. The zone is also in the early stages of constructing an apple juice processing facility. The Fetagomutubatse SEZ in Limpopo, a 1,220 hectare industrial hub focusing on equipment manufacturing, including manufacturing of fuel cell engines, production of clean energy, including green hydrogen energy, new market vehicle components manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and logistics. Is the Musina Makado SEZ, positioned in close proximity to the Beit Bridge border post, South Africa's second busiest port of entry and a critical gateway to the SADC region and the broader African market under the AFCFTA framework. Currently, contractors are actively implementing bulk infrastructure projects on site, including water supply, sewerage, electricity, roads, and security infrastructure, with these works scheduled for completion by June 2028 to enable leasing to the investors. The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition is committed to making your investment journey into South Africa simple, seamless, and successful through strategically economic in world-class infrastructure and a highly skilled workforce. Together with the IDC, which has been driving industrial development and economic growth in South Africa since 1940, we have created a platform where investment can thrive. The future of industry starts here. We look forward to partnering with you to unlock opportunity, drive innovation, and create shared prosperity in South Africa.
And that's really a summation of why we are here. May I begin by acknowledging Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, represented here today by His Excellency, the Deputy President Mashatile, our host of the SEZ Investment Conference, the Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Minister Parks Dau, Deputy Ministers present with us here today, the leadership of this beautiful province, KwaZulu-Natal, hosting us and providing for us really well, MECs from different provinces in South Africa, the executive mayors present with us here today, ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, especially trade attachés, who really facilitate the work that's being discussed here today, members of SEZ advisory boards, chairpersons of SEZs, development finance institutions, state-owned enterprises that are the vehicles through which a lot of this trade implementation works, titans of industries, investors here today, chief executive officers, directors general, compatriots and friends. My name is Lerato Mbele and I'll be facilitating day 2 of the forum, which has begun over the last the critical conversations really around the investments that are needed in special economic zones. I'm not alone. I'm with Nompumelelo and Hlonishwa. They will be our sign language interpreters so that we reach wider audiences in South Africa and all constituencies in the country. So thank you, Nompumelelo and Hlonishwa. And thank you, all of you, distinguished guests. Welcome to the second edition of the Special Economic Zone Investment Conference for 20. I'd also like to welcome you to the Republic of South Africa, but to this beautiful city, eThekwini, Durban, which, as you know, is the land of 1,000 hills, a city of golden beaches, and all of them blue status beaches. So I know that many you visit 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's many, and this is one of the more beautiful ones. So thank you, KwaZulu-Natal and eThekwini, for your warm, warm hospitality. We're here today to discuss mutual goals. And as these are industrialization, job creation, innovation and forging solutions, and also linking Africa to global value chains. And this happens through the work of investing in special economic zones, and they help to achieve this, not just for the country, but for the region at large. Many of you are investors, so I know that numbers tell a story. These are the numbers. 13 SEZs in South Africa. Within them, 224 companies invested, collectively 32 billion rands. That's about $520 million. When we look at the broader African story across 43 nations, we're looking at over 240 SEZs. And so this is crafting a picture of opportunity and of solving for Africa, its opportunities, its connection to a global ecosystem. The video also spoke about the actual SEZs that are located across 9 provinces and how they leverage the competitive advantages of these regions. Whether we're talking marine engineering services in the coastal areas, warehousing and cargo, to jewelry design, mineral processing, agro-processing. But there's also a story, just one that I want us to be aware of, when reference was made to Namakwa, Ngomati, and Musina. These are SEZs and dry ports that don't just serve the South African economy, but really connect to the trade ecosystems across the Southern African region. And so by investing in SEZs, we're not just talking about the opportunity for South Africa as a country, but we're talking about the opportunity for Southern Africa as a region and for deeper regional integration on the African continent. Now, this work is the culmination of many people, but really and truly, it is the hard work and dedication over the past 15 to 20 years of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. They are custodians of the Special Economic Zone program, through which there are exemptions, preferential taxes, incentives that are given for investing in these areas, and really fostering high-value manufacturing for us to create made-in-Africa goods that the world can harness. And so we thank you, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, for the hard yards, for the dedication, and for really galvanizing this work over the last 2 years. I know that many of you have children in school and they ask you to do maths homework. I definitely see it on social media. And one of the hardest equations in mathematics is solve for x. Do you begin in the brackets or outside of the brackets? Well, what we know is you begin in the brackets. That's where the complexity is. SEZs are like beginning in the bracket. And once you solve the complexity in the bracket, you solve the broader equation. You solve for economy. Finding local solutions, harnessing local talent. It's creating much needed labor-intensive sectors, and it's connecting all of us to global export markets. That's the X. Ladies and gentlemen, has done it. South, they do it. Poland, Costa Rica, the Korean Republic. And so really what we're talking about here is a program to really catalyze change, economic transformation, and competitive, globally linked African economies. It's doable, it's being done. And through this investment conference, we're talking about the solutions that move us to the next level. So once again, thank you for your time, thank you for your investments, thank you for your interest, thank you, Deputy President, for your leadership, thank you for the hard work, Minister Park Stau and your team, and let's have happy, progressive, successful deliberations at the second edition of the SEZ Investment Conference. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming the Executive Mayor of our host city, Councillor Cyril Xaba.
The Program Director, Ms. Lerato Mbele, His Excellency Deputy President, Honorable Minister of Trade, Mr. Park Stau, all ministers present, all deputy ministers present, MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Reverend Musa Zondi, representing the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, and all MECs present of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the DTIC Portfolio Committee and other members of Parliament present, all executive mayors present, DG of DTIC and all present, SEZ board members and CEOs, distinguished guests, captains of industries, of international institutions, of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and warm welcome to the city. It is my distinct honor to officially welcome you to the second International Special Economic Zones Conference. I extend gratitude to the Department of Trade Industry for choosing our city as the host for this. Your decision underscores the strategic importance of our region and the critical role we play in South Africa's industrial landscape. When we gather under the theme, I quote, reigniting industrialization through that, close quote, we are speaking to the heartbeat of our national development agenda. The work we do here, the partnerships we forge, and the strategies we deliberate on are blueprint for a future where inclusive economic growth is a tangible reality for millions of our people. Your Excellency, Deputy President, we are profoundly honored by your presence. Your unwavering commitment to advancing investment into the country has been instrumental in positioning South Africa as a preferred global investment destination. Through initiatives like the annual investment conference, on your relentless pursuit of investment pledges, you have demonstrated open. Your keynote address our critical deliberations. As the mayor of the city that is home to Dubai Trade Port, I can attest to the power of special economic zones. Dubai Trade Port is more than an industrial. It is an integrated integrated ecosystem, catalyzing economic activity across our region. Its investment in infrastructure, processing, and high-tech manufacturing are creating, attracting foreign direct investment, and strengthening our city's position as a critical node in the global supply chain. Basically, prosperity of our city, demonstrating how focused industrial policy can lift entire communities. Our strategic location is our competitive advantage. The city is home to the Dubai Port, the busiest and one of the largest ports on the African continent. This port, along with our rail and road networks, position us as a natural gateway to Africa and the world. In an era of the African Continental Free Trade Area, our city is poised for premier investment across the continent. The core, as we will hear from Free Secretary, for the opportunities for export
and that earn their place in the global supply chains. And so we return today to the same city, on the same coastline, to answer that question honestly, with the achievements we can point to, and with the candor to say where the program has fallen short. That honesty is the only foundation on which today's theme, reigniting industrialization through world-class special economic zones, can actually mean anything more than a theme or a tagline. This province was not chosen by accident, we would like to believe, and we do not say that the people who are gathered here were forced to come here. We actually believe that actually they wanted to be here because we are a welcoming people here in KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal sits at the confluence of two of Africa's busiest ports, Durban and Richards Bay, a coastline that carries the majority of South Africa's containerized trade, and a railroad network that reaches deep into the interior of our country and to the Southern African Development Community beyond our borders. This conference takes place at a defining moment for the global economy. Across the world, nations are rebuilding supply chains, nations are investing in advanced manufacturing, they are embracing the green economy and competing to attract productive investments. Those who create enabling environments for investment, innovation and industrial production will shape the economy of the future. South Africa is determined to be among those nations. Special economic zones are central to this ambition. They are no longer simply designated industrial sites, but they are engines of innovation, of export competitiveness, technology transfer, skills development, and job creation. For us here in KwaZulu-Natal, this agenda is particularly significant. Our province is home to Africa's busiest container port, world-class logistics infrastructure, King Shaka International Airport, and 2 internationally recognized special economic zones, the Dube Trade Port and Special Economic Zone, and the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone. These strategic assets help to position our province, KwaZulu-Natal, as South Africa's manufacturing and logistics gateway to regional and global markets. Ladies and gentlemen, our government of provincial unity has placed economic growth, investment attraction, and job creation at the center of our program of action. Working in partnership with business, organized labor, and municipalities, we are restoring investor confidence by improving governance, strengthening infrastructure coordination, and creating a more enabling business environment. These efforts are producing encouraging results. The inaugural KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Investment Conference in 2024 secured investment commitments of 85.2 billion rand across strategic sectors of our economy. Building on this momentum, the 2025 Provincial Investment Conference secured a further 100.1 billion rand in investment pledges. Together, these commitments amount to more than 185 billion rand in potential investments that will stimulate industrial expansion, create employment, and strengthen our provincial economy. These achievement demonstrate one important reality. Investors believe in KwaZulu-Natal. They believe in our strategic location. They believe in our infrastructure, and they believe in our people, and they believe in our future. Our special economic zones continue to play a pivotal role in this success. The Dube Trade Port Special Economic Zone has established itself as one of Africa's leading platforms for advanced manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, medical technology, logistics, and agro-processing. Similarly, the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone continues to unlock opportunities in minerals beneficiation, energy, chemicals, and export-oriented manufacturing, supporting our vision of building a modern industrial economy that adds value to South Africa's abundant natural resources. Ladies and gentlemen, industrialization must not only grow economies, but it must transform lives. It must create opportunities for young people entering the labor market. It must empower women and entrepreneurs. It must strengthen small businesses and help to integrate local enterprises into global value chains. That is why we remain committed to ensuring that investment actually translates into inclusive growth and shared prosperity. The African Continental Free Trade Area represents an unprecedented opportunity for African economies to industrialize together. KwaZulu-Natal is uniquely positioned to serve as a channel for trade across the continent. Our ports, logistics corridors, and special economic zones provide investors with direct access to one of the world's fastest growing markets of more than 1.4 billion people. To our international partners and investors gathered here today, our message is simple. KwaZulu-Natal is open for business. We offer world-class infrastructure. We offer competitive industrial platforms. We offer strategic market access. And most importantly, We offer a government committed to partnership, political stability, policy certainty, and sustainable economic growth. So as we gather under the theme, Reigniting Industrialization Through World-Class Special Economic Zones, let us renew our collective commitment to building a globally competitive industrial ecosystem that creates jobs, that expand exports, and unlock Africa's enormous economic potential, and most importantly, that ensures that no one is left behind, so that all our people may benefit from what we are gathered here to talk about. Lastly, to every investor, to every industrialist, to every official and expert gathered here, KwaZulu-Natal is open for business. Our ports are working, and we are ready to have the mutually engaging conversations at this conference. We will examine what has worked and what has not worked, and what world-class actually demands of us. Let us utilize the rest of today in this conference by simply showcasing what has been built. However, let us also commit ourselves honestly and specifically to what still needs to be fixed. We wish all of you a productive conference, and on behalf of the people of KwaZulu-Natal, Siyanamukela, you are welcome, and we thank you for listening to us.
Thank you so much for your interventions, Reverend Musa Zondi, the Honorable MEC for Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. And thank you for your candor of saying there's still a lot of work to be done. It's a work in progress. It's not perfect, but the foundation is very, very solid in KwaZulu-Natal and for South Africa at large. Thank you also for reminding us that the first iteration of the SEZ Investment Conference took place right here in KwaZulu-Natal under the theme Moving Towards Excellence, and what you were able to do was to measure what has transpired since then, and I think I can boldly say in that 7-year gap, we've moved from a handful of SEZs to 13 that we saw represented today. So that's significant progress. And with the investment pledges you referred to, there's fresh impetus to just keep investing, building, expanding that its people, but for the region at large. So
Ospinki Kakana, the MEC for Economic Development, in KZN, the Reverend Musa Zondi, MECs here present, the Mayor of eThekwini, Mr. Cyril Kaba, address the Mayor correctly. I'm pretending like I didn't know what to do. Your Worship, the Mayor of eThekwini. I might just be chastised for not doing that. The Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Mzwandile Masina, and members here present. Chairperson of the Select Committee, Ms. Sonia Boshoff. The SEZ Advisory Board Chair, Mr. Fish Matlalela. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, Captains of Industry, investors and SEZ operators, ladies and gentlemen, Sanbonani, good morning. The DTIC has recalibrated its focus through the Cabinet-approved Industrial Development Strategy, which is a calculated strategic response to the country's conjunctural economic challenges. The anchor challenges the strategy responds to and seeks to address are deindustrialization, declining industrial capacity, low growth and backlogs in infrastructure. It responds to these colliding challenges through three pathways: decarbonization, the transition of industrial production towards low-carbon technologies, and cleaner energy systems; diversification, the expansion of our manufacturing base and export markets; and lastly, digitalization, the embedding of productivity-enhancing technology across industries. Special economic zones are one of the principal instruments through which we pursue all three pathways. They are the central spatial delivery mechanism for the industrial development strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, the global evidence for this instrument is well established. More than 7,000 SEZs operate worldwide. In China, national level SEZs contribute 22% of GDP, 45% of foreign direct investment, and 60% of exports, having created more than 30 million jobs. South Africa's record, while smaller, is real and has untapped potential. 13 SEZs are designated across 8 provinces. Excuse me. 224 companies operate within them with a combined investment of 31.7 billion rand, a net increase of 17.2 billion rand over 8 years. In these 13 SEZs, 28,821 direct jobs have been created. The DTIC has backed this spatial investment program with 12 billion rand in infrastructure support. It is also why we commissioned the independent World Bank review of the SEZ program. The review identified 5 programmatic specific weaknesses. 1, too few private sector developed industrial parks. 2, insufficient non-financial incentives. 3, no formal intervention processes for underperforming SEZs. 4, limited use of build-to-let mixed-use models. And 5, weak service level coordination with host municipalities. On the operational side, it flagged inconsistent access to fiscal incentives between older and newer zones, and monitoring and evaluation that covers too small a share of the program. A gap that 80% of surveyed stakeholders said should be closed through formal SEZ grading systems. A parallel study by Gibbs, working with the Gauteng OR Tambo SEZ, reached a similar conclusion from a different angle, namely that our SEZs lack the fiscal and regulatory advantages of successful global models, and the benefits that do exist are concentrated in too few zones and too few beneficiaries. Rest assured, we have not treated these findings as criticisms to be managed. Rather, we have built them into the revised SEZ implementation model, which sits inside our new spatial industrial development strategy. The strategy consolidates spatial industrial support under a single plan per district municipality, merges the industrial park revitalization program with the SEZ program, and commits a cluster development approach built around each region's competitive advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, the conference exists to pressure test that model against the relevant people and institutions who will have to make it work, namely the SEZ operators, investors, provincial and local government, and our development finance institutions. Understandably, this SEZ conference takes place at both a challenging and opportune moment. South African goods are now facing more competitive global market due to increasing trade barriers such as tariffs and trade remedies disguised as environmental policy. This is not a reason to retreat from export-led growth. Instead, it is a reason to diversify where our exports go. As you are aware, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area gives us access to a market of over 1 billion consumers. Several sessions over yesterday and today will focus on how SEZs can and are converting that access into signed export contracts, not only into policy statements. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was listening to the earlier speakers, I was thinking, you know, sometimes our modesty is our Achilles heel. Because we don't always tell the story of the successes of our SEZs and what they've catalyzed. So if you think about the city of eThekwini, the province of KZN, and the interventions in the North Coast through the investment in an airport. I know most of us landed in an airport, but many of us don't always reflect that it is actually an airport that is recently built. It didn't exist pre-1994. Not only is there an airport there, it is attached to a special economic zone where you see industrial development. So when we talk about the Dube Trade Port, we don't always say that actually this is a special economic zone that has catalyzed the development of the North Coast. We don't always talk about the reality that close by is a casino license that was awarded. And let's look at what the results have been. Palito used to be a small village town. It is now a central node that exists there. Very soon we'll be launching the Club Med Leisure Park. On its own, a significant investment happening in the North Coast. When you drive along the North Coast, you witness what happens close to Mhlanga, the development of the Isibaya Development Complex. On its own, a massive nodal development. These did not create themselves. These are the results of conscious strategic investment by the state and strategic spatial interventions that yield and produce results. But when we talk about it almost as if it is a by-the-way thing that has happened, when in fact it is the result of direct interventions through policy and investments by the state. So it is therefore apt that when I introduce the Deputy President, I should introduce him as a champion of development in his own right. Indeed, the Deputy President translated the vision of the Gautrain in Gauteng into reality. The Deputy President championed the implementation of the Innovation Hub in Gauteng, central in the capital city of our country, enabling innovation, science, and research to take place to take forward industrial development and growth in our country. Talking about special economic zones, he championed the OR Tambo ITZ and its establishment. So when we celebrate OR Tambo, we can also attach a name to OR Tambo in terms of its champion. Indeed, even as Minister of Arts and Culture, the Deputy President championed the Mzansi Golden Economy, translating what we look at as leisure into an industrial and jobs creation opportunity. I therefore take this opportunity, and it is indeed my great pleasure and privilege to welcome to the podium His Excellency, Deputy President Paul Mashatile.
Thank you, Minister Tau, for that introduction. Greetings to our program director, Ms. Lerato Mbele. Greetings to Reverend Musa Zondi, MEC for Economic Development, Tourism, and Environmental Affairs of KwaZulu-Natal, also representing the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Thamsanqa Ntuli. Greetings to Your Worship, the Executive Mayor of eThekwini, Councillor Cyril Kaba. Once again, greetings to South Africa's Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, my brother and friend, Mr. Pakstau, and also Deputy Minister Zuko Godlimpi. Let me also extend greetings to all ministers, deputy ministers here present. I'm told that Deputy Minister Pinky Kekana is also amongst us, Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration. Let me also extend greetings to all the MECs who are present here amongst us, executive mayors, but also the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Trade, Industry and Competition, Mr. Mzwandile Masina, and the chairperson of the Select Committee, Mrs. Hildegard Sonja Boshoff. Let me also extend greetings to SEZ Advisory Board Chairperson, Mr. Fish Mahlalela, and all the CEOs of our special economic zones and industrial parks. Greetings to all ambassadors and consular generals who are present amongst us, and all members of the diplomatic corps, international partners, distinguished investors and captains of industry, and of course, development partners, not forgetting labor and community leaders amongst us. Greetings to our friends from the media who always ensure that we tell these good stories that Minister Pakstau was talking about. I'm very happy that you are also here, and greetings to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Sanbonan. Firstly, thank you, Executive Mayor Kaba, and thank you, MEC Reverend Zondi, for the warm welcome, and also Minister Pakstau for setting the scene of the conference. It is indeed a privilege to attend the second International Special Economic Zone Conference here in Durban, a city that represents the transformative potential of special economic zones, which we all call, in short, SEZs, in promoting investments and inclusive growth. Durban is the leading marine gateway in sub-Saharan Africa, with the port of Durban as its centerpiece. The city is a critical node between the industrial interior, particularly Gauteng, and the global markets handling a large portion of South Africa's seaborne goods. Its progress from a colonial trading post to an important international hub is based on centuries of history, strategic industrial policies, and continuous infrastructure development. Today, Program Director, the legacy of strategic infrastructure and industrial development is exemplified by the Durban Trade Port and the Durban SEZ. These initiatives are driving investments, innovation, and economic transformation, particularly the linking of the Durban Trade Port with King Shaka International Airport and the Port of Durban, which handles more than 60% of South Africa's container traffic. It is therefore fitting that we have gathered here today to advance a national project of spatial and industrial transformation. At its heart, this project is focused on building a more productive, competitive, and inclusive economy. This includes the creation of sustainable jobs, the expansion of opportunities for enterprises, and the restoration of dignity through meaningful economic participation for all people. As President Mandela once reminded us, and I quote, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life." Close quote. Our SEZs are in many respects an expansion of the vision of creating the conditions for investments, industrialization, employment, and shared prosperity so that economic growth becomes a pathway to economic freedom, dignity, and a better life for all South Africans. This task extends beyond any single province. Across our nation, from KwaZulu-Natal to Limpopo, from the Eastern Cape to the Northern Cape, SEZs are unlocking regional potential, strengthening industrial capacity, and connecting local enterprises to regional and global markets. They are also strategically positioning South Africa as a gateway to the African continent and supporting the broader vision of an integrated, industrialized, and prosperous Africa. Indeed, this is a vision rooted in a strategic choice South Africa made nearly 3 decades ago. In 1997, we introduced the Industrial Development Zone program to create world-class industrial hubs that would attract investments, boost exports, and drive industrial growth. Recognizing the power of strategic infrastructure and supportive policy, the program laid the foundation for a more competitive and diversified economy. Over time, it has evolved into the Special Economic Zones program, with a broader focus on accelerating industrialization, creating jobs, and driving inclusive economic development in South Africa, but also across the African continent. Honored delegates, A World Bank study has concluded that South Africa's SEZ program has proved successful so far, attracting 14.8 billion in revenue and creating more than 30,000 jobs across sectors like the automotive manufacturing, agro-processing, and also renewable energy. Key benchmark projects such as the Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone and the Kucha Industrial Development Zone in the Eastern Cape serve as primary drivers for skills development and downstream supply chains. We have learned valuable lessons since Kucha was designed in 2001. By 2010, government had invested more than 3 billion rands in Kucha alone, attracting 21 investments valued at 9.2 billion rands and generating more than 2,000 operational jobs. However, some of these investments were not new, but had relocated from elsewhere due to weakened municipal service delivery and township integration, leading to those zones risking becoming enclaves. In response, in 2012, we shifted to special economic zones under the SEZ Act, and today, under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa, we are entering a third phase, the Special Industrial Development Strategy. To ignite manufacturing-led industrialization, the South African government has identified key sectors categorized into 3 areas. First, decarbonization, aimed at low-carbon technologies and climate resilience. Second one, diversification, focus on expanding the manufacturing base for value-added goods and export markets. And third, digitalization, emphasizing the integration of productivity-enhancing digital technologies across industries. The Industrial Development Strategy aims to increase the manufacturing sector's GDP contribution from 12%, as manufacturing has significant multipliers to reduce socioeconomic issues like unemployment, especially amongst the youth and women. The Special Economic Zones program is a key mechanism for this reindustrialization agenda. And after more than a decade, it's crucial to evaluate its impact. As former Deputy Minister Majola once said at the SEZ CEOs Forum, and I quote, SEZs and industrial parks are critical players in South Africa's industrialization agenda and economic growth. But they will not succeed unless we improve performance in each of the SEZs, close quote. This therefore requires fully operational, well-resourced SEZs supported by reliable infrastructure, efficient regulation, and good governance to drive industrialization and attract investments and stimulate inclusive economic growth. Colleagues, we are not starting from a blank slate. We are building on an existing network of SEZs and industrial parks that have already established industrial foundations across every province of our country, as they have been mentioned earlier this morning. From Kucha, the largest SEZ on the African continent, spanning more than 9,000 hectares, driving automotive, energy, and manufacturing clusters alongside the port of Ngqura. To Saldanha Bay, our only designated free port, strategically positioned to develop South Africa as a leading marine repair and services hub for the Atlantic and Indian Ocean oil and gas industries. To Musina Makhado, located along the vital N1 South, North-South corridor into the Southern African Development Community SADC, with a focus on mineral beneficiation, logistics, and agro-processing. And to East London Industrial Development Zone, a UNIDO-recognized eco-industrial park that is setting the benchmark for green industrialization, automotive components, and sustainable manufacturing. Together, these strategic industrial platforms demonstrate that the foundations for accelerated industrial growth are already in place. Our task is to strengthen their performance, deepen their integration into regional and global value chains, and ensure that they become powerful engines of investment and inclusive economic development. But we must go further. The new Spatial Industrial Development Strategy demands that we reference every new zone against 6 layers. First one, infrastructure corridors, ports, rail, and energy. No zone can strive in isolation. Second, resource endowment, from the Bushveld Platinum Group metals to our agricultural belts. The third, existing industrial parks. Isithebe, Ezakheni, Babelegi. We must revitalize them and plug them into SEZ value chains. The district development model, the DDM, every district must identify its competitive advantage. Fifth, socioeconomic data. Zones must be located where jobs are needed most. And 6, community integration. A zone is not successful if the township next door sees no benefits. As the speakers before me said earlier, we need to take everybody with us. Nobody must be left behind, including those in the townships. Program Director, this is spatial referencing not as a technical exercise, but as a tool for both spatial and economic justice. I should also make it clear that as government, we are not planning for the next election cycle. We are planning for the next generation. In this regard, Cabinet has endorsed a 20-year SEZ development framework with formal evaluations that will take place every 5 years. The first years, from 0 to 5, it will be baseline and discipline, We will map, audit, and set KPIs for every zone. Investment, jobs, exports, and SMME linkages. No more vanity projects. First 5-year evaluation, we will ask challenging questions. Did this zone generate new impact and investments, or did it simply relocate existing investments? Did it create jobs? If a zone scores below 60 on our scorecard, we will trigger the 5-year intervention framework that Minister Tau has announced. We will restructure, repurpose, or de-designate if necessary. The 5th to 15 years will be consolidation and expansion. We will deepen clusters, automotive in Kucha and East London, PGMs in Limpopo, and marines in Saldanha. We will sign SEZ pacts so that national government, provincial government, and district municipalities deliver incentives in unison. And then, of course, 15 to 20 years, we want by 2046, we should have fully integrated our SEZs into global value chains and their local communities. A young person in Mthatha should be able to envision a career path that starts at the TVET college, progress to an SME supplier, moves to a factory floor in East London, IDZ, and ultimately leads to an export market. Honorable guests, investors tell us that they want certainty. This certainty is provided through, amongst others, the 3-sphere incentive package. Nationally, we offer the 15% corporate tax rate for qualifying SEZ companies and the Section 121 manufacturing allowance of up to 900 million rands, VAT and customs relief in our custom control areas, and the employment tax incentives for the youth. Provincially, our entities such as Kucha Development Corporation and also the other IDZs provide subsidized land, world-class infrastructure, as they alluded to earlier, but also bespoke skills programs. At the district level, our municipalities commit through service level agreements to fast-track zoning, provide bulk services, and ensure 30% procurement from local SMMEs within a 5-kilometer radius. However, incentives are not entitlements. They are part of a compact. In return, we expect investments, we expect jobs, we expect to produce for exports, but more broadly, transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have more than 5,000 SEZs globally competing for the same capital that we want. We cannot compete simply by being the cheapest. We compete by being the most strategic, the most reliable, and the most inclusive. To our SEZ CEOs, your performance will be measured every 5 years, not only on glossy brochures, but on actual jobs and what you have produced for exports. To our mayors, an SEZ cannot function if there is no water, no electricity, or no road that leads to the factory gate. The district development model must assist us to actively implement the district development model to ensure integrated development plans. To our investors, South Africa is open for business, but we are not open for extraction. We want you to beneficiate here at home. We want you to train here in our country. We want you to partner with enterprises and SMMEs here in our country. To our communities, these special economic zones are yours. Hold us accountable. The girl child in Danzani must see the East London IDZ as a promising future for her and generations to come. The artisan in Musina must see the SEZ as a market and, most importantly, a door to global markets. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, let me leave you with the guiding vision of South Africa's industrial policy. It says the following: industrialization to create employment and rising incomes. Transformation to build an inclusive economy and a capable state to drive effective implementation. That is a mandate before us. As we leave Durban this evening, let us renew our collective commitment to ensure that our special economic zones become engines of investments, innovation opportunity, not islands of prosperity, but catalysts for inclusive growth that will uplift every province and every community across our country. Thank you very much. Aken Sainkom.
Clear, coherent, unwavering. Thank you very much to you, Deputy President Paul Mashatile. As you spoke, Mr. Deputy President, I was reminded of two famous proverbs, one Asian, one African. The Asian proverb says, we plant today the trees that will provide shade for future generations. It's legacy building. And when you said we are not planning for an election cycle, we're planning for the future we envisage for South Africa, that really came through quite coherently. Also, as you spoke, I was reminded of the African proverb that says, if you want to go alone, go fast. If you want to go far, go with others. And partnership matters. And so you spoke about delivering in unison across the different spheres of government, and make sure that whatever you do, you think about the added benefits, the multiplier effect for local communities and jobs in those local communities, with those powerful words, not extraction, but beneficiation. mutual development. And thank you also, Mr. Deputy President, for reminding us, as you echoed the words of the late President Nelson Mandela on the eve of his birthday tomorrow, that lifting all people out of poverty is an act of justice. Lifting people out of poverty is an act of justice. And so we have that really as a poignant reminder of why we're here. It's investments, yes. It's industrialization, yes. It's growth, yes. It's developing local value chains, yes. It's adding more local producers onto supply chains, yes. It's showing what made in Africa goods look like to be appreciated by a market globally, yes. It's creating new markets on the African continent, yes. But ultimately, it's the act of justice, of bringing a continent into its fullest potential. And as you spoke, I also was reminded of the fact that we are talking about SEZ investments in South Africa, but for the broader region. As we speak right now, there is a broad African vision, Agenda 2063. The continent is not stagnant, and we're in the second decade of the implementation phase of some of the key tenets of Agenda 2063, of which regional integration is a core pillar of one of the 7 tenets. What we've seen since the adoption of Agenda 2063 is in 2018, the AfCFTA was ratified, the African Continental Free Trade Area. That treaty has now been adopted by 50 African states as we speak, and through the assisted trade program, we saw just last year alone $200 billion of trade moving through the African continent. So something is happening across Africa. But as we speak here today, we're reminding you that South Africa, with its capabilities, seen in the automotive assembly lines, the very best in the Southern Hemisphere, gas storage facilities, marine engineering services, high volume mineral exports from a country that has no less than highest reserves in 7 of the critical minerals required for industrial and tech growth in the world. Vast agro-processing, that with the opportunities opening up across the African continent, this country is poised to be a gateway into these frontier markets, has capacity industrially, has policy supporting it, and has SEZs that can be a catalyst. And so with those words, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you the first of our facilitated discussions. Why invest in SEZs now? This is an investor perspective on the conversation. The panelists are Ms. Phumzile Langeni, Non-Executive Director of DP World, Mr. Neil Hill, President of Ford Africa for the Ford Motor Company, Dr. Stavros Nicolaou, Senior Executive for Strategic Trade at Aspen Pharmacare, Mr. Corey Kotsa, the CEO and co-founder of the AIH Group, Mr. Donovan Chimandamba, the President and CEO of Nyanza Light Metals, Pty Ltd, Mr. Andrew Masiwa, the Director for Client Relations in Southern Africa, and we're joined by the MEC for Economic Development in Gauteng, Vuyiswa Ramokgopa, who will moderate this conversation. So may all of our panelists make their way to the stage, and could our moderator take charge of the stage.
you, Program Director. I'm feeling quite fortunate today because I get to sit on the other side of the panel today as the moderator, and I'm not the one who's in the hot seat today. But I'm looking forward to a very good discussion, a very robust discussion, and I welcome all the panelists here today. His Excellency, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Paul Mashatile, the Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Mr. Pakstau, and all dignitaries and delegates present today. My name is Vuyiswa Ramokgopa. I'm the MEC for Economic Development, Agriculture and Rural Development in Gauteng, which incidentally is home to also two of the SEZs, the Tshwane SEZ, the OR Tambo SEZ, and the soon-to-be designated Vaal SEZ. So today I am here with some of the investors who are invested in our province, but also in many of the other SEZs all over the country. Now the topic today and the theme that we gather under on this panel is to talk about why, to get a better understanding of why you as companies, as investors from the private sector, have chosen to invest in SEZs. It is really to understand what the proposition is around an SEZ for those who may not know. Now we know that South Africa offers a compelling offer. We have heard reference to the reduced corporate income tax rates, the customs controlled areas, as well as some of the VAT relief and the support that is given to investee companies. But those incentives and incentives in general cannot just exist on paper. We want to talk about what happens in the real world. What we're going to test today is whether that proposition really remains competitive and whether yourselves as companies are indeed leveraging the benefits from the SEZs as we imagine them to be. Now, my panelists have been briefly introduced, but just to guide us, we really want to achieve three things in today's discussion. Now, first, we want to talk about what's working. What's working for you in your particular individual spaces. Second, we want to have an honest account about the regulatory and operational areas that perhaps need attention. You have the ears of all of the relevant people in the room today, MECs from all provinces and senior leaders of government. This is an opportunity to share what are some of the challenges that may be experienced and how do we then overcome them. And third, it's really about developing jointly a practical roadmap and steps that we can take that will assist us and assist those who are in the early stages of SEZs to better refine the offering in their respective provinces. So, Sis Phumzile, I'm going to use my power today and start with you as the rose amongst the thorns. And I'm going to allow you actually and request that you maybe, let's start zoomed out a bit. You are from DP World, which is a global logistics giant, and you've been invested in South Africa for some time. Why have you invested? Why SEZs, and what is the value proposition for your company?
Sure. Thank you very much, MEC, and to the DTIC and the city of my birth, eThekwini. It is wonderful to be back, and thank you for the invitation. We are in a fortunate position as DP World. We are the 5th largest global port terminal logistics operator that offers end-to-end services to countries across the globe. I think you see us in more places than not, and I have no doubt that you've seen many of our trucks on the N3 across all corridors in South Africa, previously branded as Imperial and now being branded as DP World. So why do we invest in SEZ? Probably the way I'd answer it first and foremost is, why do we invest in South Africa? We believe, and as a South African and also a person in business, I think when I look at the continent and we look at the continent, we see what South Africa is, the most diversified economy in Africa. We provide 14% of Africa's value-added manufacturing capability. If I look at the depth of our capital markets, the depth of our institutions, our judicial system, I mean, South Africa ranks as a shining example of what transformation and change can do. That said, we do have our own housekeeping issues, which to a large extent have also bedeviled our development and growth. A lot of that is being illuminated at the Madlanga Commission and various other forums. But I would say why we invest is because we believe South Africa has got talent, South Africa has got a robust economy, and South Africa has got the backbone of creating a very sustainable future that we have seen over the last 30 plus years. And why SEZ in particular? We are a little bit late to the party as recent investors in the Nkomazi SEZ. Thus far we've signed a lease, but we see in Nkomazi what we have been able to see in Jebel Ali, which is probably my point of reference. And our approach to SEZ is that SEZs provide an ecosystem. And SEZ is not an industrial park in isolation. And SEZ has been seen, as mentioned by the Deputy President, the Minister, and the Mayor, to have an impact not only on society, not only on the economy, but also on the communities that are around it. We see it as a catalyst to development, especially on the logistics side, because the key element in any successful economy, which you also find in an SEZ,
some of the experiences that you've gleaned from your time there.
Well, Madam MEC, thank you very much for the question. I wish to acknowledge the Deputy President and Minister Tau, thank you very much. I think from an SEZ perspective, and as you rightly point out, we haven't always been in an SEZ. But when it came to our most recent program that we announced, which of course was the Next Generation Ranger, which came to market in 2023, we looked at what it would take to be globally competitive and how we could benefit and support APDP2 and SAM 2035 in terms of the automotive master plan. And that was to be a high volume plant that was not only supporting the domestic market but also exporting. And key to the success of that was making sure we had suppliers that were in close proximity to the factory, not only because of the fact that it helps in terms of shortening value chains, it reduces inventory levels, and it supports our just-in-time process, but it also has a quality aspect to it as well, which allows us to course correct very quickly in terms of where we see adjustments needing to happen. The reason why that is so critical is that we're fully integrated into Ford's global economics or ecosystem in terms of supplying vehicles across the world, I should say. We export to more than 100 countries from South Africa. So in order to be competitive, we have to be competitive from a cost perspective, from a quality perspective, and having our suppliers, and that was a very, very ambitious plan that we launched, and we had tremendous support from all three tiers of government to make it happen in record time and to meet the production thresholds that we needed to. It came together very, very quickly, but high quality, speed of reaction, and also efficiency is so critical. The critical thing why that matters is because South Africa, from the automotive sector perspective, when we are competing for investment decisions, I'm not competing against Toyota or VW or Isuzu. I'm competing against other plants that make Ford vehicles around the world. And as South Africa Incorporated, as I like to call it, if our value chain, our whole ecosystem is not efficient, cost competitive, that capital, that foreign direct investment goes elsewhere. So that is why using an SEZ was so critical for us in terms of making sure that we were cost competitive, that we were efficient, and that we need to really leverage everything possible. I think I can touch on later some of the things that we are seeing challenges on, but those are the reasons why we really wanted to be a part of that, is to be able to leverage the advantages, be competitive, and support South Africa as being fully integrated into the global ecosystem.
Thank you for that. I want to come to you, Donovan. I want to talk about Last night we celebrated the SEZ Awards, and there was one particular investment that was hailed as one of the bigger, more exciting developments that has taken place recently. And that is an investment made by your company. Now I want to talk a bit about that. What difference has it made for you being located in the RBIDZ, and how has that assisted you to getting to where you are right now? And I think just talk a bit also perhaps about that particular investment that you've made, and how the SEZ has essentially enabled that.
Thank you, MEC, and greetings to the Deputy President and Honorable Pakstow. I think maybe where I want to start is to start by saying that South Africa is. I want to start in terms of how we came into deciding to be in Richards Bay, or South Africa at large as well. South Africa remains with one of the most compelling, is one of the most compelling industrial destinations on Africa. The reasons for that is that we are well endowed in mineral resources. We have a very deep industrial capacity and engineering expertise. I think most of that emanates from or comes from the days, the industrialization between the 1950s to the 1980s, where you saw the Sasols, the Genrefs, the Suprefs, where you saw the ISCO metals. That led to quite a deep industrial capability that South Africa has, even at an engineering expertise level. We also have, in South Africa, you have a very sophisticated capital markets. You have the financial markets also coupled with the high-performing stock exchange on the continent. And also, most importantly, is that you have access to the African and the global markets through being at the ports and world-class infrastructure. So when you put all of those things together, they start to give you an idea of the natural competitiveness that South Africa has. Now, I think coming back to the conversation is changing. We've just entered a new era, a new industrial era, an era which is driven by transformative forces. I think there are two transformative forces that we're seeing globally. That's your artificial intelligence and your electrification or just energy transition. Now, when you look at those two transformative forces, they demand or require a lot of infrastructure. They need a lot of critical minerals, they need advanced materials, they need manufacturing capability. So, and when we look at AI infrastructure, I know everybody thinks about digitalization, it's AI data, all of that. But before a data center becomes a data center, it starts from the mine, it goes into refineries, and then it goes into manufacturing capability. So there's a lot of minerals that go into the value chains that underpin AI infrastructure, that also underpin the energy transition. Now, as Nyanza, we saw a generational opportunity, which says that there's an opportunity because Africa for the last many decades, in fact for many decades, has been exporting raw minerals with very little value addition. Specifically when you look at Nyanza, what we targeted is heavy mineral sands. We know we have South Africa probably has the world's second largest reserves when it comes to titanium dioxide, which is found in the ilmenites mined by the likes of Richards Bay Minerals, mined by the likes of Tronox. In Mozambique, you would find that there's Kenme, and it goes on across the coast into the rest of the continent. But all of this is exported at low values of $300 a ton. And then we re-import back the final product at $3,000 a ton, which goes into the manufacturing of paints, plastics, industrial coatings, inks, almost in everything that we touch every day. But again, we've exported at $300 a ton. We re-imported at $3,000 a ton. We've just not only lost value, but we also exported the quality jobs that would come with that. So when you come back to us, we said we're going to build that industrial capacity, that mineral beneficiation operation. We commenced with the construction of that 2 months ago in the Richards Bay. It's of significant scale. It's $870 million. We normally use, to give you the idea of the scale, we normally use the number of football pitches. It's equivalent to 97 football pitches, 97 football stadiums. That's the kind of scale when you look at the kind of beneficiation that we need to start to bring onto the continent. Coming back to the SEZs specifically, when you look at what we need is infrastructure concentration. We cannot be trying to put these industrial capacities starting from basics by putting together infrastructure. You also have regulatory support when you're in the SEZs. You have logistics, you've got access to ports and markets and supply chain ecosystems. So those are some of the things that from a Nyanza perspective has driven us to go into the special economic zones. And there's a lot more that I'll touch on as we get into the conversation.
Thank you for that. And I think that already directly responds to the call that the Deputy President made to say we should not just be a destination for extraction, but for value addition and beneficiation. And really, it's encouraging to hear that we are now retaining a lot more of that value. We're actually onshoring some of those jobs, and we are building that industrial base that enables us to participate at that level of the value chain. Two of the speakers have spoken about the importance of capital markets and mentioned that. And I want to come to you, Andrew, as the money man around the table, and just get a better understanding of the value proposition of an SEZ and of a company that is invested in an SEZ from a perspective of a funding institution. Now, specifically from your perspective as a Afrexim Bank, are there any particular funding concessions that Afrexim Bank has committed to in the context of SEZ tenants or companies? And is there a special dispensation for companies that are invested in SEZs? Or how do you then look at them as funding institutions?
Madam MEC, thank you for that question. But let me start by just expressing our profound gratitude to the President of the country, the Vice President, and Honorable Minister for the support that we are receiving as Afrexim Bank in South Africa. And on the point about the interventions that we see that can be provided to the special economic zones in South Africa, I want to go back to just 5 months in time when South Africa made a very critical decision to become a member state of Afrexim Bank. And this was made possible with the efforts that were led by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. And as a result of this membership that South Africa has made into Afrexim Bank, we also see it befitting to announce a $14 billion country program for South Africa. Within this country program, we have got components that include a $3 billion Afrexim Bank inclusive support development program for South Africa, which is targeted to the black economic players who would like to be also involved in the economic emancipation of the country, as well as diversification of resources within the country. Now, one could say these packages, they are not for the SEZ specifically, but we cannot remove the discussion from the fact that when you have industrialization, this is how the resources of a country are amplified and the value and return provided back to economy. And so we want to advance the strategy of Afrexim Bank being led by industrialization. This is on record as part and parcel of the thrust of Afrexim Bank under its current leadership, to industrialize Africa. Now, the specific forms of instruments that are available under the Afreximbank Inclusive Support Development Program includes project preparation funding. And to my right-hand side, we actually have got an existing client of Afreximbank in Nyanza Light Metals, who have received support under project preparation funding. And when a project moves to full bankability, we then also follow suit with providing project financing. And beyond project financing, we also play a critical role in our advisory services offering that has the effect of twinning and matchmaking the producers, the value-adding industry with markets across the borders. So these are interventions that are available, which I see as value-adding to the universe of support that any entrepreneur is able to access. The DTIZ in itself is heavily invested not only from a custodianship of the industrial policy, but we are also aware of their support in providing grants. The World Bank review report that has just been concluded in 2026 with the various pinpoints of areas of focus. And these are all parts and parcel of the story that Afreximbank feels proud to be associated, and the story that Afreximbank want to rally behind with the programs that I've mentioned that the bank has promulgated. Thank you, MEC.
Thank you. And thank you, Minister Tao. We see you and your leadership. It is indeed great news that South Africa is now a member state of Afrexim, and that channel is now available to us. We'll talk a bit later about perhaps some of the ways in which you're collaborating or the potential to collaborate with other of our development finance institutions and local financing institutions. Stavros, let me come to you. And I know you are always a vocal champion and advocate for industrialization, and particularly you have strong views about what we need to do to, get the motor engine running. But I want to talk a bit about your investments in Kucha and what has informed that, and what specifically was the reason for your investment there. And maybe you can talk about, in particular, how does Aspen anticipate that its planned manufacturing plant will assist in closing the gap in terms of South Africa's vulnerabilities to global supply chains and all of the other global competitive factors that we are seeing. I mean, you're obviously exporting globally, and we'd like to get a sense from yourself of how you're experiencing your global position and competitiveness via your involvement at Kucha.
MEC, thanks very much. And you've gone from the money man to the drug man here. So the drug man's going to comment. But let me before I do that, let me also acknowledge with great thanks the invitation to be here today. I think this is a critically important engagement for the country and for the continent. Let me also acknowledge the leadership of our Deputy President and our Minister, and certainly all the other distinguished guests that are here, and particularly my business colleagues that are here as well. I'm going to do a little bit of prefacing just for 30 seconds before I get to the nub of your question, MEC. And like Pumzile, I think the starting point for me is why invest in South Africa in the first place. And you've heard many of the reasons. I'm going to not necessarily repeat them, but we are the most industrialized economy on the continent, the most diversified, extremely strong financial institutions, good governance, and an advanced manufacturing sector in certain sectors. But I think the most compelling reason is that South Africa still provides the best value proposition on the continent, given the demographic dividend that is going to ensue in the next decade or so. And investors take a long-term view. They don't come and invest, say, look, we're coming to invest because there's an opportunity next week. They take a long-term view. And if you are looking on the continent, how do I play in this demographic dividend of Africa, given that 1 in 4 Africans will be, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be an African by 2050? South Africa provides, in my humble opinion, the most compelling investment case. So now that I've got that out the way, MEC, let me focus specifically on your question. Now, we have spoken about some of the benefits of the continent, some of the deficits that can be turned into opportunity. One of those deficits is that we are saddled with, regrettably, the most disproportionate disease burden of any continent in the world. We have the worst of infectious diseases and the worst now a rising tide of what we call non-communicable disease. This is diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and others. And please, the two shall never meet, we hope. But it does provide an opportunity for those who are looking to invest in the pharmaceutical industry. Why? Because the African Union has been very clear, led by our own president, who championed this during COVID. We said that never again what happened during COVID shall be repeated, where Africa was at the back end of the queue when it came to vaccines, pharmaceuticals, other medical countermeasures. So we need to establish our own capacities, our own capabilities, our own expertise. Not easy to do when you're competing against heavily subsidized other geographies around the world, particularly Asia. And the playing fields are not level. So if you export out of many Asian jurisdictions, if you export pharmaceuticals, you're going to get significant tax holidays, accelerated depreciation schemes, subsidized land, water, electricity, and the list is endless. So what the SEZ offering provides for us, and this is why we went for it as Aspen, it provides two things. It allows us to still be invested in Africa because we do want to participate in that demographic dividend. We do want to push back the frontiers of healthcare challenges that the continent is experiencing. And lastly, we also want a level playing field, or to a degree a level playing field. And the SEZ offering is exactly that. You yourself, MEC, before you started, cited some of the benefits. I'm not going to rehash those, but I think we looked at this very much from the vantage point of we're African. We see great growth prospects in Africa and beyond. We see South Africa and back South Africa as an export destination. There's one area, whilst the DP is here, that I do want to address on that. But it also gives you, if you participate in it, SEZ, some type of leveling effect against your competing geographies. So like Neil said, very often you're not competing against companies, you're competing against geographies that are significantly more attractive. And I don't have to remind anyone, this audience, capital is agnostic. It follows where it's going to get the most stable, predictable environment, and also where the returns are best. And I think we still offer a very compelling case here in South Africa. Lastly, you made a provocation at the beginning, MEC. You said, what is it that we need to do in addition? We haven't leveraged domestic volumes for export orientation in our country. And the single biggest missed opportunity, I believe, and thanks to Minister Tau, because he's looking at this now, I hope he gets the health minister to do the same. He knows what I mean. But what we are saying here is the single biggest missed opportunity is our inability to leverage public procurement to get economies of scale, volume throughputs, recoveries, and export orientation bears a direct link to the SEZ offering and is one that is complementary and one that we need to work on very close alignment with. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for that, and I appreciate your consistency. I remember when we were on a panel at the Gauteng Investment Conference, and I think you raised this issue about the need to leverage public procurement more effectively to drive economies of scale, and I think that's a point we really need to internalize and be able to have a way forward on. And I think, Sisphumzile, when I will come back to you, because there was a point that the conversation that's starting to be had about saying how can we also have more competitive offering, looking at other markets, recognizing that we don't operate in a vacuum. We're operating with other localities and other regions, but I'll come to that. I want to come to you, Corey, and I think you give us a good perspective, because your company, AIH, has investments and is participating in multiple SEZs. The Tshwane SEZ, as well as the Dubai Trade Port, as far as I understand. Now, it would be interesting to also hear from your perspective what, and I don't want to draw comparisons, but I would want to get your reflection about, the offering and how you've experienced your time in both, and more importantly, what are the standout benefits that AIH has gained by being located within either both Dubai or within TASES? Thank you for that case study. It's certainly very helpful. Now, we are running a bit short of time, so we're going to do a very quick fire single response session. No ums and ahs, no opening statements. I want bullet points. What do we need to do to make our SEZs top of the chart? I hear you that they're world class and we agree, but there's always room for improvement. And we are competing in a global economy. We are competing with other regions globally. How do we ensure that the South African SEZs and our SEZ model is on the top of the pile? And I want to get just 2, maximum 3 key points from each of you in 90 seconds each. We'll start with you, Neil.
All right. I think absolutely leveraging the scale that comes out of an SEZ is critical. We have to make sure that we're doing everything possible. In our world, we're facing the most incredible onslaught that we can possibly look at. We have to make sure that every single step of the value chain, both in terms of incoming and outgoing logistics, works. To give you an example, China exported 1.1 million vehicles in the month of June alone. That is double South Africa's entire production in a year. So we're facing an incredible onslaught. So that is why we have to be as efficient and as cost effective as possible. SEZs play a massive role in terms of shortening value chains and being cost effective and really leveraging the advantages that we have at home.
Thank you for that. Amazing. Thank you. Spunzile.
Hard to beat. So from my perspective, I'll say, firstly, there are many successes. Let's replicate those. Where we are falling short, I would suggest tighter timelines when it comes to interventions so that we can act and ensure that any negative experience is contained. The second one is leveraging our ports, aviation, and rail, because that is one of the key benefits of an ecosystem. Reducing friction in terms of governance, infrastructure, and regulation, and probably having read quite a bit ahead of today, some of the case studies from other countries, and probably one is considering an SEZ authority who would be the one point of contact to facilitate licensing approvals and assist companies so that instead of dealing with national, provincial governments, they're actually dealing with one point of entry. Thank you.
Thank you. Very concise, very clear. Corey, what would you say? Thank you. Donovan.
Thank you. So I think I've got 2 points. The first one, I think the SEZs have done very well, and using the words property developers loosely. I think it's with all the infrastructure that they've put in, the bulk infrastructure, they have a massive opportunity now to take one step further and move to becoming utility operators. If you look at our project as an example, if we were in China, it would have cost half the price for us to, or half the peak funding would have been what we were looking for. Because now we have to start from a baseline where we have to put in water plants, steaming plants, and all of that. So what I would say the game changer is, number one, the SEZs need to move a step further and say, we now want to be utility operators so that we can come and focus on what we do. The second one is more around what we call maybe industrial clustering. So it's not about just inviting factories. that are not coordinated into these zones. The most competitive zones are zones where they attract value chains into a zone. So there must be some coherent strategy around, I think the Deputy President spoke about each zone must be referenced to something and create that comparative advantage. So attract value chains, not factories. So those are the 2 points that I'll leave with.
Thank you for that. Attract value chains, not factories. Very powerful. Andrew, let's hear from you.
So I think that we probably have got the infrastructure now more or less in place. The universe of SEZs that we have in South Africa is the largest in Africa, without an argument. So what we now need is to increase the tenancy. Let's increase the amount of investors, because a lot of them are not yet achieving the critical mass of investors that are expected. So that's number one. And perhaps still on number one, Afreximbank through RMB, IDC, DBSA, we are also happy to be looking at the funding requirements. And perhaps that universe can be included to the rest of South African banks. On its part, Afreximbank has been ranked the #1 lead arranger in Africa for several years running, which speaks to our crowding in capacity of investment and funding into these kind of opportunities. Lastly, AFCFTA. I think before we are looking furthest ashore opportunities, I think there is scope to be increasing the amount of trade with the rest of Africa. Studies show regions that trade within themselves achieve the most development. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stavros, you have the last word.
Thanks. Three quick points. Number one, we need to continuously test the competitiveness of our offering, and we need to finesse and fine-tune it. That's a colloquial way of me saying Treasury need to get more on board, to be frank. So if we need to look at export incentives to support the overall tax allowance benefit, then so be it, as long as it is fiscally neutral or accretive to the fiscus. Number two, we need to keep reducing red tape, administrative burden. No use attracting an investor and you roll out the red carpet and all the other agencies that you've got to deal with are anti-investment. So we've got to get alignment. And then the third thing is, as I said earlier, MEC, we need to fix our public procurement because, to Neil's point, scale is critical for any manufacturer. And if we're living in the world of, and I know this is what Minister Tao is advocating all the time, innovation, industrialization, and manufacturing, if you look at that complex, then the nexus to all of that is leveraging domestic volumes for global competitiveness. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the panelists. I see the lights are flashing on us now, but without wanting to rehash all the great points that you've made, I just want to consolidate some of the key themes, certainly coming out of your recommendations. So it's clear for all of us what the mandate is. We've got to reduce red tape. We've got to make sure that investors who are looking to invest or have already made those commitments don't get stuck once they're already in the system and don't get frustrated out of the system. I quite like the one about not competing with each other. MECs of other provinces, I hope you are listening. Let us learn from each other, let's collaborate with one another, but let's not compete with each other, and I think we take that to heart. Aligning of incentives is also key, and I think that point was very powerful, that we are dealing with one community of business people, of investors, and it's important that the experience of an SEZ, the incentives, whether it's in Kucha, whether it's in Tshwane, whether it's in Dube Trade Port, that they're able to leverage the same benefits. Competitiveness and driving competitiveness through scale becomes very key as well. So economies of scale. And we must build for the regional market and be able to compete, of course, in a global market. And I think one of the key ones is also, and this is something that perhaps wasn't explicitly mentioned, but the DP made the point and he said, let us not have SEZs that are simply islands of excellence. They must also be able to build inclusive economies and to benefit local economies in the region. So it's really about driving that local economic development and not simply focusing on SEZs as clusters of factories. And I think that's the point you were making about the ecosystems. You know, we are really talking about the broader industrialization ecosystem and not simply solving for individual factories. To my panelists, I thank you very much for your inputs, and to all of you, I thank you for giving us your time. We can formally adjourn the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to panel number one, providing a case for why to invest in SEZs. I want to say SEZs, but SEZs in South Africa, and doing it now, and thank you to our moderator as well. As I introduce the second panel, let me just also remind our exhibitors that this is the panel before lunch, so just if you can through WhatsApp or however you communicate with your teams, just make sure that they're getting the exhibition stands ready, because during lunch we will take an opportunity to have a look at your wares and what it is you're showcasing. So just a reminder to exhibitors to start thinking about exhibition at lunchtime. Secondly, for panel number two, the Deputy President humbly has requested that he has a hard stop at 1:30. Not 1:30, 1:32, 1:30, he has to exit this room. So that gives you a cool 45 minutes. Let's stick to time. Our second discussion is titled From Enclaves to City Development, SEZs as Engines for Smart Cities. So a few statistics. It is said that currently 46% of Africans live inside a city. That's across the continent. 46% of the population or the demographics of this continent concerns people who are already living in cities, and the figure is rising. It's growing at a rate of 3.5% per annum. Now that 3.5% growth per annum is obviously higher than South Africa's current growth rate, which really means there's a huge demand on housing, healthcare, utilities like water, electricity, and roads. It also amplifies the need to fast-track economic growth. And we believe that SEZs can't just be categorized as specialized economic zones. They can, in this context of broader social development, be a place where we see better urban planning, infrastructure, and jobs. And so our conversation now really centers around how to catalyze broader local development through SEZs. Please welcome the Honorable Pinky Kekana, the Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration here in South Africa, joined by the Honorable Chitekere Baldwin Matibe, the MEC for Economic Development in the Limpopo Province, joined by Councillor Nasipi Moya, the Executive Mayor for the city of Tshwane, joined by Councillor Dada Morero, who is the Executive Mayor for the city of Johannesburg, and it's a discussion moderated by Mr. David Makura, the Chairman of the Board for the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Lerato. I want to acknowledge Deputy President Paul Mashatile, Minister Pax Tau, Deputy Minister Godlimpi, the Mayor of eThekwini, and the Parliamentary Chair of the Committee. And thank you so much, and say all protocol observed. You can see our panel is made up of people in government. I am very happy that I've crossed the floor, I'm no longer in government. The key focus of this panel is essentially going to be the first thing, also just picking up on both the speech by the Deputy President and the Minister, is the clarity of vision as well as policy certainty from government, and at all levels. For SEZ to really work, you need all spheres of government, municipalities in the affected areas, provincial governments, and national government to have this shared vision. And it has to be absolutely clear about what that vision is, a very compelling vision about what we're trying to do, what is our vision for the country, but also our vision for the specific province and the specific municipality or city. The second thing, going together with that, is the Deputy President emphasized about that a great deal, execution and performance. State capacity is extremely important, and that's the matter that the Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration is going to really focus on. How do we make sure that government executes and the institutions of government perform their responsibilities, because that's one of the key issues of concern. And the last area of focus that we're going to require you to talk about is collaboration, just at the level of government, collaboration, partnership. Collaboration first at the level of government and all the three spheres of government, but also partnership with business. And all these issues came very clearly from the DP. He was making a commitment. He was saying this must be done. But let's share experiences. We will start with municipalities, our teams, the two mayors. We'll start with the mayor of Tshwane, Dr. Nasipi Moya, to just share with us how the SEZ fits in the vision of the city. The SEZ in your municipality won a Tshwane Automotive Special Economic Zone, is one of the winners last night. But how did we get there? And what do we do from here to build that into an integrated part of the vision of the city and a viable, inclusive economy for Tshwane?
Plan that speaks to the 40 to the next 50 years, which also encourages expansion in that. Just to touch on the 2 points quickly, what needs to enable us came a lot, came up a lot here. Infrastructure development, we have a backlog in billions, which we don't have in the bank, not in our budget. So we've started through the trading reforms as well, being encouraged by those to look for alternative funding model, and Mayor Kaba did speak about that in his speech. So infrastructure development, we have a plan. We are inviting private sector together with state-owned entities to work with us. Through the universities, we're also looking for skillful supply of young people that can participate in these opportunities. We have a strategic land release program for those who want to come to Tshwane and expand. And I think what is more important though is as a municipality, it came up as well in the previous discussion. The ease of doing business can no longer be rhetoric. So we've worked with DTIC and GGDA at province, where we have a one-stop shop at one of our economic development agency. So we're trying to cut the red tape, and the past few months, I think we've done quite well in just encouraging investment and to fast track the approvals, etc. There are other initiatives that I won't get into. But in terms of the experience of the SEZ, that SEZ has significantly changed Tshwane as we've known it. The fact that a person from Nelmapias can walk to work and do such sophisticated work, it changes the culture of our people. So for me, on the softer side, not even talking about the benefits in terms of jobs, the SMMEs, but the indirect benefits of informal trading in our space, whether the taxes that benefit the informal traders themselves or the small scale rental from the people that are working at the SEZ. So the benefits are massive. As the last point, SEZ is not an isolated development in Tshwane. We actually have 4 mega city developments that are currently underway within 10 kilometers from the city of Tshwane. And what we want through those mega city development is that we need to create a livable space and communities for the people that would be working there, but even beyond. So we're not treating an SEZ as an isolated development. Thank you, Mr. Makore.
Yes, I think that's very important for cities to understand that you can't just, this SEZ is not a magic wand. It must be integrated into your vision, and it must be some of the elements of that must add to what you really want to do. But your colleague next door comes from a city that is the mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Mrero, comes from a city that is the global financial center in South Africa. You also come from a city that's not new. We will hear from the provinces about where they are going to be building new cities. With existing cities, Mayor Mrero, share with us, how do we sort out governance issues? How do we strengthen governance? How do we deal with the issues of infrastructure to ensure that Johannesburg, for example, continues to be this significant player in our economy? So just share with us what we are doing in Johannesburg. With you, we're not talking about any specific SEZ. Okay. You're already a very key player in our economy. Give us the confidence that governing cities better will strengthen the initiatives that the DP was talking about.
No, thank you, facilitator, and of course I'll stand or rise on the protocols already established. If you allow me then to acknowledge only the worship of eThekwini Nonkosi, our counterpart. Allow me to answer this question in a complete different way, and allow me to be a little disruptive, if you do allow me, Program Director. So I'd first would like everyone to close their eyes and internalize the theme for this conference, which is reigniting industrialization through world-class SEZs. And may you please close your eyes and be rest assured.
We have closed our eyes.
And do not worry, we are in a safe space. And the mayor, your worship had earlier announced the reduction of crime stats in eThekwini. So you are certainly safe, and secondly, you can trust me. I'm not a Jonas. Developmental local government has provided an opportunity, first and foremost, to structure a clear and systematic review and forward planning cycle that focuses on the need, first and foremost, to transform local government institutions internally and ensure that it can effectively deliver or drive delivery and development, mobilize new resources, create a collective vision between local government institutions and other parts of government and key partners, in particular the private sectors, reconnect local government to communities and to empower communities to have a real voice in the future efforts of the city. Define big projects that will turn the cities around, integrate across departments to center the organization around clear corporate goals. And lastly, facilitate and ensure that the budget is strategic and that resources are committed behind clear and specific goals. You may open your eyes. Therefore, delegates, the City of Johannesburg's spatial planning is directly linked to our IDP, and this is about, in real sense, collectively engaging with communities of Johannesburg in order to develop an integrated development plan that is owned by the people of Johannesburg. It is about building trust and creating an enabling environment where we can all hold each other accountable, focusing on delivering basic services that changes lives and transforming society to the next level of development. And lastly, and importantly, is attracting investments to enable growth. But what are our engines that are helping us to drive this delivery? It's first in acknowledging that the three spheres of government working together through the model of DDM or district development model and building resources together. And in particular, focusing on the Lensaria Smart City. And what does Lensaria Smart City does? It pulls three municipalities together, with Johannesburg, Mogale, and Tshwane, to focus on how we can therefore integrate and build a last city. If you allow me, on a last point, on bulk infrastructure and infrastructure development, which is key, and Johannesburg is now focused on water infrastructure. We are accounting for about 12,600 pipeline of water network, and we are therefore focusing on it precisely because it has aged and it requires refurbishment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The two cities are not new cities, but we now talking about SEZs in provinces, where provinces are thinking of SEZs also as opportunities to build new cities, to transition just from an industrial area into a new mega city in the way that Tshwane, Johannesburg, eThekwini, Cape Town are. To do that, it also requires a great deal of coordination, but also investment and leadership from provinces. I would like to invite the MEC, Dr. Chitereke Matibe, the MEC for Economic Development in Limpopo. Limpopo has essentially been talking about Makado, Musina, this SEZ in the boundary with the Zimbabwe, and there's another important SEZ initiative, Tubatse, in the south. MEC, just share with us, and here I would like to emphasize that the key thing is to move from pronouncing SEZ, but execution, and just getting a sense that that SEZ is happening, especially in provinces like yours. So what is it that the province is doing now to move from the idea to realization? The Deputy President seems to be having very tight timelines for you there, including deadlines for your team that should deliver on that.
Thank you very much, Facilitator. Greetings to the Deputy President, Minister, and all protocol observed. I think starting from the vision as Limpopo is that we do have what we call Limpopo Development Plan. And out of that, we have put different targets. Just one target that I can put out, which drives us on industrialization, is that as we speak, our contribution to the GDP currently is at 7.8%. And in terms of our Limpopo Development Plan, we want to move it to 9%. Currently, we are number 4 as a province. But our industrialization is driven by 3 realities. The first one was indicated by DP, that our province is endowed with mineral resources. And according to the Minister of Minerals, Minister Mantashe, he says the next mining rush will be in Limpopo. The second reality is that we are strategically located as a province. So the third one is that we are moving towards the green economy because of the radiation. We are number 2 in South Africa in terms of radiation. So we have these 2 economic zones. That is your Musina Makhado Special Economic Zone, as well as the Fitahomu towards a Special Economic Zone. The Musina Makhado is strategically located because it is located, is a gateway to Africa. And you can't have a gateway when you don't have cities that align with that gateway to Africa. And our vision is that our cities must start from Makhado, moving towards the border. And we are in engagement with the DP World so that we don't have a special economic zone in Musina. It becomes a cross-border economic zone. As you indicated, you don't want prosperity on this side and the other side there is no prosperity. Then it solves quite a number of challenges that we are facing as a country. But to look at all these towns, including Fitahomu, we have got a 3-legged cities, so that we don't only look at one side, which is Musina and Fitahomu. You have your Lipalale on the western limb. So if you combine the 3, they become a triangle, and with Polokwane at the center of the city, and then you grow the economy of the province to the level that we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that Limpopo inspiration. Limpopo and the Free State are more or less at the same level because these are the provinces, unlike KZN, unlike the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, where the SEZs are a bit more advanced. These 2 provinces are at the same level. So the MEC for Economic Development and the MEC for Finance in the Free State, MEC Ketso Makome. I know that the MEC was introduced in the panel later, not by me, but we were given that directive that if the Free State and Limpopo are not accommodated as newcomers, we will not see the full story. So tell us about the SEZ story in the Free State, and what is that doing to shape the vision of the Free State for the economy?
Thank you, facilitator, and let me pass my greetings to the worship, the mayor, the deputy president, and the minister, and my colleagues in the ESCO and all other dignitaries. The Free State SEZ is founded in our own strategic economic growth plan, and there are so far 3 areas that we have identified. The other one is in existence. It's referred as the MAP SEZ. The MAP SEZ is found in the Maluti Apofung areas, which centered around the area Kwakwa, Harrismith, and Tsiame. As you will know that those areas are also areas which have the most strategic and attractive logistic hubs, because that's where you have N5 and N3. Now, the SEZ in the area, it's mainly about the the issues that have already been addressed by my colleagues here. But the other thing is that Free State, it's popular known as the breakfast of the country. So part of our SEZ will also be looking at the agro-processing. And second, it's automotive, and then there will be issue of the manufacturing. And what we have been doing as the province in relation to MAP 16, first was to set up structures which talks to the strategic economic growth, because that has been one problem that the Free State has always been the key. We used to have a SEZ that did not have the capacity in relation to human resource. You know, I think for the past 2 years, there's never been a CEO. Now we have appointed the CEO, and he has been busy setting up structures and setting policies and systems that makes this policy to, that make that SEZ to be attractive. We have already from China and Italy with the Premier, we have already secured 3 lucrative investments. As we speak now, the MOUs with that as the investments that we've secured, they are with the DECO to advise us on what needs to be done and not to be done. So that talks to the execution. There are already other things that are taking place in the SEZ. But I think the most important thing that we have is one of those that you may call also the investment park. Because you found that there are so many zones, offers, allowances that we have created. Yes. We also have an incentive policy that is strictly talking to SEZ. Now, the second one is the one that it has already been given to Gauteng, the VAL SEZ. The VAL SEZ talks to the hydrogen in the main. It also talks to the blue tourism or the blue economy in relation to Vaal River and Valdam, but they also talk to issues construction and manufacturing. Yes. Now, the importance of this is because Metsimaholo wanted through the Fezile Dabi, they also wanted to apply for the same SEZ and with the same priorities. So our take has been that instead of applying, we rather be incorporated into the VAL SEZ and think about building this, what we are calling the regional development city, in line with what we have already started with Gauteng, the Vaal River City. Yeah. So this is why it is important also for us to say we have already started. Unfortunately, it was said that we are competing. Ourselves and Gauteng, we are not, we are complementing each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there is the question of cross-boundaries SEZs and cross-boundary cities, that as we move forward, we're thinking of our cities not just with the design of current provinces. I would like to invite at this point the Deputy Minister for Public Service Administration. Deputy Minister, in the end, the municipalities can talk about what they do and the provinces can talk also do what they need to do. We need national government coordination, not just from the DTI. The DTI is mapping a vision for us. We also need state capabilities to do certain things. Please share with us from public service and administration, how do we make sure that these things do happen and that government function better?
Thank you very much, facilitator. Let me recognize the DP, the minister, your worship, and all other dignitaries. I think from yesterday to today's engagement, the talk has been about moving from little enclaves of zones, reimagining SEZs, but also moving towards special economic cities. Now, what we have done as the three spheres, if you look at that slide, as municipalities, the province, and the country, we have ticked the diagnostic, provinces said, and they were able to identify. We planned, we also identified enablers. We built dams, whether from Harib, Nandoni, everywhere. So we put all those things coordinated as one. We made sure that we increase our electricity capacity, whether it's Midupi, it's Kusile, and everywhere. The road network are ongoing, but not only roads, rail is also on course, as well as air traffic, especially because there's no province in the country that can say it does not have an international airport. The ICT, through broadband infraco, including SA Connect, and DBSA has been leading that. So those are the enablers that government has looked at. Now, if you look at this, I'm just trying to use Limpopo as an example on the three cities that they want to do. And if the three spheres where municipalities, province, and South Africa come together, that's where the DDM model speaks to. Now, if we're able to enhance that and be able to be better coordinated, deal with issues of delay, and the reason that the president saw it fitting that champions of DDMs must either be ministers and deputy ministers. It is about bringing national and provinces together so that we deal with all these things and intervene on time on issues of licensing, on issues that need national competency, and so on and so on. So that interface has to be more practical than ever before. We need it because, as you heard the previous speakers, they were talking about investors seeing government as one. They can't go to the Department of Environment, they can't go to the municipality. So we must be one and be able to deal with these things. So that's where the DDM come in. Because at the center of all these things is investment promotion. It's putting every province accordingly on what certain things should be taken care of. I think MEC Magume spoke about what we have done. In fact, we collaborated with Fezile Dabi to make sure that they become part of this green hydrogen program, but also collaborate with Gauteng, because already the Premier of Gauteng was talking about the VAL SEZ, and we're saying it is not necessary for us to do that. Let's join them and then have one regional city along the Vaal River. So those are the kind of things that if you collaborate as the three spheres, you are able to deal with some of those things. So we now have to move at that lower level of impact and output, because we have three priorities and we are responding to those priorities. We want to see inclusive growth, we want to reduce poverty, we want to see capacity of the state. Now, we can only do that because we want to attract investment, we want to build industries, we want to create jobs and make sure that all those things that you see until we prosper together as South Africans. So those are the things that must speak to how we respond to the MTDP as the three spheres under DDM. But central to that, it's the skill set that we need to have. So as we do this SEZ, as we look at all these things, how do we collaborate with universities? How do we make sure that the TVET colleges in our areas become relevant? We have seen it with Lephalale as an example, where ESCOM and Exaro came together and say, we want the TVET College of Lephalale to be the one that gives us the student that can then be able to be absorbed by that market. So that is the approach, and that should be the approach and relevance of training across all those things. So yes, and we're also learning lessons with what is developing now. The MEC, the Minister of Finance withheld budgets for municipalities that are not performing. It goes back to capacity of the state. So we need to strengthen the CFO's offices. We need to strengthen planning, because in municipalities, if planning has the right skills, if local economic development has the right skills, because all these things we can only achieve if we capacitate those entities at municipal level. The infrastructure units in municipalities, because at the end, the IDP must incorporate what we are saying. And we're even saying DP, if push comes to shove, any national department that presents an APP that does not talk to the DDM, it means they are planning for, they want budget for something that is not talking to what a particular district is saying. So the DDM plans must also inform the APP so that we are able to deal with that. So those are the steps that I think we need to take care of.
So Deputy Minister, you are giving us the assurance, essentially, that's my question, that this question of coordination, this question of implementation, execution, are receiving attention at a national level. And I would like you in 1 minute just to talk to your colleagues. What is one thing that you would want them to do differently? They are here. You have an opportunity, mayors and provinces. One thing you want them to do differently to help us achieve what you were just mapping out for us here, to achieve impact, the desired impact.
We are saying from the DPSA's perspective, professionalization of the public service is non-negotiable. So whoever you appoint at municipal or provincial level must be on merit. Because if you don't do that, we don't have the right people at the right places, and execution will be a nightmare.
Thank you. That's very, very powerful. Professionalization is non-negotiable. 1 minute for you. Limpopo, what is one thing you would want to say to national government you need support for to deliver on those tight time frames?
Thank you very much. I think a baby always cry. We cried that we want Fitahomu towards the national government gave us. But we are looking at collaborating those two SEZs with the western limb, which is Lephalale and Mokopong. And if that happens, then the whole provincial economy will move and all the cities will benefit.
Collaboration you can achieve on your own. They are all in your in your province. You can't ask national government to collaborate with yourself. It's okay.
No, when we applied the SEZ, there were 3. We have been given.
Oh, you want
2.
the third?
Yes.
Okay, you see now. You have to be very clear what you are asking.
Yes.
But first deliver one.
Yeah, we'll deliver.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I want to go back to you, Mayor of Tshwane. Back to you. What is one thing that worries you about delivering this vision of a new Tshwane that has got the critical special economic zone or zones that we need? As you are sitting here, what would be worrying you immediately about achieving that vision that you want to share with us?
I think, and it's the most obvious one, Mr. Makura, and that's the inability to deliver basic services. The captains of industry here were talking about competing with other regions. And there's something that Mr. Neil would talk about from Ford, the dips.
Yes.
And how much a single dip cost them. And that comes as a result of inability to provide consistent basic services in the form of electricity, water, and ensuring that there is supporting infrastructure. And that's what is our obsession right now, that we can't talk big vision if we can't deliver on basic services so that there's no interruption of service. Thank you.
And that inability is more capacity, because I would say we have enough development finance in South Africa. Come to the DBSA, funding is not a problem. Would I say that is the institutional capacity?
So we are a bit delayed because that conversation, we solidified it on Monday where DBSA was part of funding the infrastructure so that we can take care of these basic services. So that is the conversation that is now, we are bolder now to have that conversation. But what keeps me up at night when we have these captains of industry wanting to bring investment to your city and you can't give them the basics, that keeps me up at night.
Okay, thank you very much. I hear you very well now. The Mayor of Johannesburg, in 1 minute, give us the confidence sitting here in Durban that something is being done to bring back this great African city to play the critical central role in the economy. Don't ask us to close our eyes now. I think we closed our eyes. Just in 1 minute, give us something we can take with. And we won't close our eyes now. We are watching you now.
Thanks, facilitator. Thank you very much, Mr. Makura. The issue in Johannesburg at the moment is bulk infrastructure investment. And we are focused on that, and that is why we're also going to the capital market to try and raise money and resources to invest in our infrastructure. We believe by investing in the infrastructure, it will then open up investments into the economy and create a better environment for business to thrive in Johannesburg. The second part is reducing on the red tapes, especially in terms of development planning, so that we ensure that the processes of approval of plans is accelerated and developers can find a better way of doing business in Johannesburg. Okay. So those are the two key issues.
You're paying attention to infrastructure and cutting red tape. In 1 minute left for you, Free State. Just give us the sense that the leadership of the Free State is really paying attention to ensuring that the Free State plays a critical role in the South African economy.
Thank you, Ndade Makura. One, we have changed the messaging. For instance, Free State is at the heart of South Africa. Our message is very clear in relation to growing the economy and building it. That Free State, it's a place to go to, not a place to go through. The problem has been that people from various provinces, they always go through the province, and they never take an inch to go to the province and start to see how beautiful, attractive, and what are the things that are there to can invest and ensure. Okay. And the leadership, I think particularly in municipalities, our greatest worry is, are we able to build investable municipalities? Is the question that we're going to answer in our coming investment summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this really concludes our discussion. So I think we have significant ambitions. Those ambitions is to first deliver on the SEZs where they don't exist. And secondly, there are SEZs that are there that need to grow into just more than nodes in the cities, must be linked to the bigger economic plan of the cities, but also interventions from national government. We are really happy that national government is asserting this capacity of the state issue and coordination. We got that assurance from the minister. I want to thank all members of the panel. That really brings us to the end of our panel. 1 minute 50 seconds. DP, we have delivered on your time. You are here, Lerato. I want to thank members of the panel for sharing with us and giving us the confidence that we are getting our house in order. I mean government. We are getting our house in order. Government is getting its house in order. Not me, I'm not in government.
That's why we're standing on this side. Before the panel leaves, could I ask you to please give a rousing applause? I mean, it was tight. The time frame we gave them was tight. The answers had to be succinct. They had a really tough taskmaster. I love the crossing over. You get it now. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. And you've done really well. So thank you to the panel and thank you to the moderator.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dada. So I can safely say, because I'm looking at my tablet, the time is 13:29. We made it with a minute to spare. Before I introduce our third panel before lunch, may I request that we all are upstanding and allow the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa to take his leave. The Deputy President's team had said that he would have loved to listen to all three panel discussions, but because we started the program an hour and 15 minutes late, it meant that we couldn't run over. But we thank you for your time, we thank you for your patience, and we thank you, Deputy President, for just being so willing to listen to conversations about the development